It is now 5 o'clock, and today is September 19th, 2017. And I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city is housing as its successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gomez.
Good evening.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Negretti.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox. Mayor Garcia.
Here. This is a time and place for the general public to address the City Council on any item listed or not listed on the agenda per Government Code Section 549-54.3. State law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Do we have any cards or anyone that wants to address the council at this time?
I have no cards.
May we have declaration of closed session items then by our city attorney?
Thank you, Mayor Garcia. We have 9 items listed this evening, however, many of them are related. Item A is anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2. The facts and circumstances related to that are set forth on the agenda pursuant to Government Code 54956.9E3. That's on behalf of the City Council. Item B and C on behalf of the City Council are related to items E, F, G, and H on behalf of the Airport Authority. That is all existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. The litigation is between ComAv and the Airport Authority, as well as other parties, and the case numbers and case names are set forth on the agenda. And item D on behalf of the City Council and item I on behalf of the Airport Authority are also existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and that is the SEC versus City of Victorville et al. And the case name and case numbers are also set forth on the agenda. To the extent there is reportable action, we will report it either at the conclusion of the closed session or at the commencement of the regular 6 p.m. session.
Thank you. At this time, we will be recessing to our closed session. Our regular session convenes at 6 p.m. It is now 6 o'clock, and today is September 19, 2017, and I call to order the meeting of the City Council of the City of Victorville. And the City Council sitting is the Library Board of Trustees, Southern California Logistics Rail Authority, Southern California Logistics Airport Authority, successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency, the Victorville Joint Powers Financing Authority, the Victorville Water District, and the city as housing asset successor. May we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Gomez,
Good evening.
Councilmember Kennedy, Councilmember Negretti,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox,
Here.
Mayor Garcia.
Here. May we have our closed session announcements by our city attorney, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Garcia. We had 9 items on the agenda. However, several of them were related. Item A on behalf of the City Council was anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, and the facts and circumstances pertaining to that are set forth on the agenda. Item B and C on behalf of the City Council are related to items E, F, G, and H on behalf of the Airport Authority. That is existing litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1. The parties to that litigation and the case numbers are all set forth on the agenda. Item D is existing litigation also pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D1, and that is on behalf of the City Council. The related item is item A on behalf of the Airport Authority. Again, the case names and the case numbers are set forth on the agenda. At this point, there is no reportable action with respect to any of those items.
Thank you. We will now have the invocation, which will be delivered by Michael Powers from High Desert Church, and the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Police Chief John Schuler. So please stand.
apparently he is not here. He did not check in at the beginning of the
I'm always happy to pray. Join me in prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing everyone here safely. We pray for Mikey. Hopefully he's fine and just missed his appointment tonight. Father, we ask that you watch over the meeting as you always do, that you guide the hand of this council as they deliberate these items, and that you be with us as they make those decisions and are implemented by staff. We thank you always, especially for sending your Son, Jesus Christ, who died for our sins, so that we may all be with you eternally in heaven if we choose to follow him. And Father, we pray these things in your Son's name of Jesus. Amen.
This evening we have two special presentations. Presentation to Mayor Garcia and Mayor Pro Tem Jim Cox from Victor Valley Korean American Association. So we will come down to receive.
Hi everyone. As of the member of the one of the member of the High Desert community, we have our own Korean Chamber of Commerce in High Desert, this sector. So also, I'm very happy to having this event to express our appreciation to the mayor and then all the city staff. Their the help was really great. Now we can process our project on this community. So. I want to okay. Certificate of Appreciation. High Desert Korean Chamber of Commerce Award to certification of appreciate to Mayor Gloria Garcias for exceptional support and contribution toward Korean community, and for the enhancement of the relation between the Republic of Korea and for United States. Korean Chamber of Commerce President Hans Kim. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
And the certificate of appreciation, Mr. Jim Cox, Mayor Pro Tem, as same. Thank you, sir. And the next, I want to introduce our two member, Korean Chamber of Commerce main member. They're doing their project in our city on the Bear Valley Road. It's very updated and a modern style car wash, auto car wash system. And here's a big plan. So we can do right now because we couldn't do that without the city help. But now we're successfully doing and progress very fast. Thank you very much. Please welcome to here. And also, they want to contribute their facility in the Bear Valley. Not only the facility, but also they want to contribute, to the city project, some kind of a monument, something. So they want to donate some specific amount to the city today. Thank you.
I'm very pleasure join the Victorville Future Plan. So, we want to donate some amount for the Victorville Futures. So, we'd like to support continually to the Victorville's futures. So, thank you very much.
I say thank you so very much. It is greatly appreciated. And everything that I have done and that I will continue doing, of course, it's for our city, for our people. And we appreciate you coming in and investing your money here in our communities. Thank you so very much for everything that you also do for us. And God bless you. Once again, thank you so very much. It's greatly appreciated. Now, can we have our city clerk present the agenda to council and revisions to the agenda?
Yes, Mayor Garcia. Persons who wish to address the council on a specific item or on any item that does not appear on the agenda are requested to complete one of the white speaker cards located in the council chambers lobby and give it to the city clerk prior to the meeting. The mayor will call upon each individual who has submitted a speaker card. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.3, state law prohibits the council from addressing any issue not previously included on the agenda. The council may receive testimony and set the matter to a subsequent meeting. Comments made during the written communications or public comment sections of the agenda are to be limited to 3 minutes per speaker or less as deemed necessary by the mayor. Communications are to be addressed directly to the city council. Individual comments to staff or members of the audience are not permitted. Any person or group who interferes with the conduct of a city council meeting by willfully interrupting and/or disrupting the meeting is subject to removal. A peace officer may be requested to assist with the removal should any person or group fail to comply with an order of removal by the council. Any person or group who resists removal by a peace officer is subject to arrest and prosecution pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9, Penal Code Section 403. All documents to be considered for approval at this meeting are before the council, and there are 2 revisions to tonight's agenda that have been provided to the city council as well as members of the public. The first one is a letter and petition from Mark Ward regarding the rental licensing program. The second one is the addition of page 2 to the same staff report for item number D4. It was left off of the report, the agenda item by mistake. Those are the only revisions that we have, Mayor Garcia.
Madam Clerk, I don't have the second revision.
It may be attached to the
The D4 revision, but that's it.
This evening, we do not have any appeal hearings. Therefore, we move on to public hearings. Item number 1, B1, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against amending and updating section 2.04.300 and chapter 2.24 of Title II of the Victorville Municipal Code, claims and demands against the city. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council open and conduct the public hearing, make the environmental exemption finding, introduce ordinance number 2375 for adoption and first reading by title only, and waive further reading in full of proposed ordinance number 2375.
Thank you. At this time, I open the public hearing. I do not have any cards. Was there someone that wanted to speak on this item? I don't see anyone. I close the public hearing. And any comments or questions by council members?
Just a question. I understand that the complaints that we have seen in the past filed will no longer appear.
That-
be handled administratively.
That's correct. If this is adopted, ultimately, almost every meeting, we have some claims on the consent calendar.
My
There was-
question is it possible, or would it violate confidentiality somewhere for us to get a summary of the settlements that were actually made? We never hear about that. We only hear about that.
Once there are settlements, they are public, and I wouldn't see a problem doing that.
Yeah, we can definitely add something
periodically.
as a consent calendar item with some of the other departmental reports, yeah.
Question, Madam Mayor. At what point is the council told that we do have claims?
Under this item, if it rises to a certain dollar amount, a certain level, then it would be discussed in closed session. This item is not about not showing the council the claims. The way the law reads, the city has to reject a claim, which is really the start of a process. I know it sounds like the end of a process, but it's actually the start of a process that sets a minimum number or maximum number of months for the claimant to then file a lawsuit. That's the purpose of the rejection of the claims. If you do not reject a claim within, I believe it's 45 days, then they have up to 2 years to file a lawsuit. If you do reject the claim within the 45-day period, then that shortens that to 6 months. And that's the purpose of the agenda item every month. The reason this is on the agenda is we've had on a couple of occasions where, for whether it's a quorum reason or just not having enough items, we've canceled meetings. And I recall one meeting maybe 18 months ago or so that was strictly in order to reject a claim so that we could start that clock. So based on a couple of issues we've had in the past, staff has discussed with the attorney and proposing this as a means to do it more efficiently in the future.
I do. I have several. So how long has it been since City Council has had to see these types of claims? I'm looking just for a year.
I believe they've always looked at these claims.
So since 1962. I'm
I
going to
don't-
assume
I don't
because
know.
that was the
I
incorporation
don't know
of
if
the city.
laws have changed that caused this sometime between 1962 and now, but I'm not aware that they've ever not done this so long as it's been required.
So I vehemently disagree with the 6th paragraph of ordinance number 2375, which reads, in order to process claims more efficiently and expeditiously, we require all potential litigants to first present their claims to the city in a specified manner prior to filing suit and authorize the city manager to perform certain functions of the city council. respecting claims in the accordance with Government Code Section 935.4, and to update the municipal code to reflect these practices with respect to the processing, the auditing, the approval, and the payment of warrants and the demands. The City Council, if the City Council finds it in the best interest of the city and its residents, to adopt this ordinance amending Section 2.04.00 and Chapter 2.24 of the Municipal Code. So in other words, that paragraph, in my opinion, reads, let the council adopt the policy for the city manager to do our duties. The other thing is Government Code Section 935.4 does authorize the City Council to delegate authority to an employee for the city to perform the City Council functions that relate to the acceptance, the rejection, the compromise, the settlement of claims, to provide the authority, which is in a specific dollar amount equal or less than $50,000. So currently, any amount over $25,000 does come to the approval of City Council, and this policy, I think, should continue, just as it has for several years. So I'm really against this proposed ordinance 2375. So in other words, continue to take the voices of the people and let our city manager preempt the voice of the elected representative of the people. This is no different, in my opinion, than SB 649 as a state preempting local government at the city level. So my comment on this section is, I read that one of the concerns for this ordinance was time or the statute of impact, maybe holidays or maybe quorum issues. I believe that admin can call up special meetings as it has in its past for other meetings to alleviate the potential thought of an ordinance such as this being adopted. So I don't see how such duties brought to council present a burden or a relief for council. There are already far too many tasks delegated to city employees, where I have come to know leave city council in the dark as to what city business is taking place. And as a council member, I've asked several questions on behalf of taxpayers and make the best decision possible when prompted. And I think this ordinance is another attempt to keep council out of what is taking place naturally in the city at large. Section 2.04.300 is titled Approval of Warrants and Demands. This ordinance specifies that the duty and the responsibility of the city manager is to review, process, and reject and or approve claim, demands, warrants in accordance with applicable provisions of Chapter 2.24 of the Code, which is to allow the preemption of these functions from city council to the city manager. 90% of the time since December 2017 selection, I have been completely unaware of what the city manager does on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. Why should the city manager get extra tasks that the government code places on an elected body, that being the city council that's right in front of you? I also disagree with Section E of this proposed ordinance. The city council hereby delegates, so this is what it reads, the city council hereby delegates authority to the city manager to review all claim for sufficiency and to reject any and all claims. The city council further delegates to the city manager's authority to allow, compromise, or settle claims as may be appropriate if the amount be paid pursuant to such allowance, the compromise or the settlement, and that it does not exceed $50,000, or the amount of the city's self-insured retention, whichever is less. Furthermore, Section 2.24.050, titled Approval by Financial Director, gives the Finance Director the ability to audit and determine the five elements, and I didn't write these down. These are part of the packet. So I don't have anything against the person behind these titles, and I don't take any, please don't take any of my rejections for this specific ordinance. That I do have concern, please. So I just wanted to make that
Not
clear.
at all offended.
Madam Mayor, can I make a motion, please? I'd like to move that we make the environmental exemption finding, introduce the ordinance for the first reading, and waive for the reading of the ordinance. Is that what you need?
I do need to read the title of the ordinance first.
Okay, read the title, please.
Ordinance number 2375, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville, California, amending and updating Section 2.04.300 and Chapter 2.24 of Title II of the Victorville Municipal Code relating to claims and demands against the city.
That's my motion.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Let the minutes reflect my no vote, as the city council should continue to see items on the agenda relating to claims for money and damages, such as trips and falls, claims, damages to private property as a result of city tree climb fallings on a private vehicle, city sewer backup claims for homeowners, city vehicles that are contracted with private property improvement, and vehicle collisions, including city vehicles. So no, I don't agree.
Okay, motion carries with Councilmember Gomez voting no.
Now we move on to item B2. Public hearing ordinance 2367, City Council procedural rules. Mayor requests City Clerk read the recommendation. And we're gonna
Yeah, we are removing this item from the council. It's just if somebody is here in response to the published notice, it'd be appropriate to let them speak on it. If not, this will be renoticed and will be brought back to you.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Would you please repeat that?
I do not have any cards on this particular item.
Yeah, staff is requesting this item be removed. It was noticed in the newspaper. The only reason it's on the agenda tonight is that somebody was here in response to the newspaper notice that had the opportunity to speak. It will be renoticed and put on a future agenda.
Thank you.
I will move on to item B3 now. A public hearing to hear arguments for and against amending and revising designated truck routes. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council conduct a public hearing and introduce ordinance number 2373 to amend and revise designated truck routes within the city limits.
Thank you. At this time, I open the public hearing. And I do not have any cards from the public. Therefore, I close the public hearing. Are there any questions or comments from council members?
I have a question or comment, Madam Mayor.
Go ahead.
D Street, which is Highway 18 and Hesperia Road, large trucks that are getting off the freeway and then going easterly on D Street to Hesperia Road, turning southerly, are driving over the curbs, gutters and sidewalks. That's going to continue to be a truck route. I'd simply request that staff look at changing the turn radius on those streets because there is damage that's already occurring. More will occur. I have no idea why trucks want to travel Hesperia Road in that location, but it says Hesperia Road is a truck route. But at least they ought to look at that, but the damage that's occurring there. Otherwise, that was just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Is that on B3 or is
Yes.
that on a later item?
B3.
B3.
Truck routes,
Got it.
B3. And Mayor Pro Tem Cox, you may have noticed that D Street is actually being removed as a truck route, and that's not for the purpose that you stated. It's actually because we don't control that. That's a Caltrans controlled road. It's a state highway, and so it's appropriate for us to remove the designation because it's not technically not our road.
I agree, but once they turn off the road, it is our jurisdiction.
It is. It absolutely is. So we can definitely take a look at that intersection and see if there's something that can be done with that turning radius.
Question, are we going to do signage so that trucks know and get some direction on where to go? Not that they read it, but there's a hope that they'll read it.
There is signage that exists, and as the case is in Mojave Drive, if it's not there already, it will be.
Yeah,
Nisqually and Hesperia Road.
yeah, correct. And we can, since Green Tree is being removed as a truck route, we could ask the Sheriff's Department to do some traffic, not necessarily enforcement, but traffic information, so that with their traffic officers, if they do see a truck on there, they can, pull them over and politely let them know that this is no longer a truck route.
Don't mean this to be a criticism, but how many months or years do they just pull them over and warn them before we start giving citations?
Well, it's more of an enforcement question, but.
Well, I agree that this is going to be a change, and initially
Right.
we post it, and of course it would be fair to anyone for the police department to go out the following day and get tickets, but there's going to come a time needs to be enforced, and some direction should be given that appropriate, that they will begin enforcement if necessary.
Yeah, I would imagine Sheriff's Department or engineering has a sort of a typical response when there's a change to traffic conditions.
Questions?
Yes. How does this ordinance 2373 impact the local businesses that are located on D Street when there's a delivery truck over 12,000 pounds needing to access that general vicinity?
D Street actually, even though it's being removed as a truck route, it will remain as a state highway, which is a truck route, so it won't affect them at all.
And how will the city note that a truck that is under or over 12,000 pounds is coming into that city? Maybe that coincides with how is that going to be enforced, if it is going to be enforced or micromanaged?
It comes down to, I used to work parking control for another city, and there are ways for traffic officers to get a pretty good sense for its weight, one of which happens to be the number of lug nuts on the side of a wheel, to be honest. Once you hit a certain number of pounds, you have to have a certain number of lug nuts.
Okay. And if D Street is not under the city's control, does that imply that after we, and I put in quotes, borrowed the streets as a truck route designee, we have finally made it through a viable change and permissibility is allowed? You kind of said that to Cox, but I wasn't understanding that portion.
No, I think earlier when it was designated as a truck route, whoever proposed that wasn't thinking about the fact that it's actually a Caltrans controlled street. It's a state highway, so whether we have a truck designation or not is immaterial. It comes down to what Caltrans considers the street.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Madam Clerk, will you please read the title of ordinance?
Yes, ordinance number 2373, an ordinance of the City of Victorville establishing traffic regulations in said city and amending Section 12.36 of the Victorville Municipal Code entitled Truck Routes.
Can we have a motion?
Move adoption, move further reading and adoption of ordinance 2373.
Second?
And just for clarification, that would be way further reading and introduction. Motion by Mr. Cox, second by
Sorry, I
Ms.
said
Gomez.
adoption, I meant introduction. Sorry, thank you.
Second by Ms. Gomez. All those in favor? Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
And Madam Mayor, just for information's sake, I know Councilmember Gomez had a question regarding local businesses on a street that is no longer designated as a truck route. Any street in Victorville, in the state, even a residential street, trucks are allowed to drive on them if they have a delivery in that area. So if a small business is no longer on a truck route and has a delivery from a large truck, that's still allowed. It's the through movements that are no longer will be allowed on Green Tree Boulevard.
Okay, I move on to item B4, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against case number DEB 17-00001, amending Title 16 relating to electric vehicle charging stations, including land use allowances, and an expedited and a streamlined permitting process in accordance with state law with an environmental exemption. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation, please.
The recommendation is that the City Council conduct the public hearing, find the Municipal Code Amendment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA Section 15061B3, introduce ordinance number 2374 for adoption and first reading by title only, and waive further reading in full of proposed ordinance number 2374.
Thank you. At this time, I open the public hearing. And I do not have any cards from the public that would like to speak. Therefore, I close the public hearing. Madam Clerk, please read the title of ordinance number 2374.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Victorville amending Title 16 of the Victorville Municipal Code to address electric vehicle charging stations, including land use allowances, and an expedited and streamlined permitting process in accordance with state law with an environmental exemption.
Thank you.
I'll move we find the municipal code amendment exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to section 15061B3. Introduce ordinance number 2374 for adoption and first reading by title only and waive further reading of the proposed bill.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Before the formal vote, I'd like to get commentary and questions answered, so I'll take the time to do that now. Does the city of Victorville have a proposed zone stations to where the vehicle charging stations will be plopped, or is that also dependent on Assembly Bill 1236?
Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
So do we have zones, or is this going to be like scattered anywhere and everywhere? Or have we thought about where we're going to have it in commercial sites, residential sites next to? I mean, how is that going to be organized?
It would be subject to zoning, but I'll ask Chris Borchardt, our development director, to come down to answer that. Hopefully you understand it a little better than I do.
There actually aren't zone districts provided for in this ordinance. They're allowed in any zone district.
So that means commercial, industrial, residential, multi-house, everything, right? Is that
Yes,
what you're saying?
as long as it is accessory to an existing use on the site.
Is that a CUP? Or is that different?
No, this is saying you can't require a
Yes.
CUP for it.
But it's not a single-use site.
Right, exactly. You can't go to a vacant lot and put in electric vehicle charging stations and charge money for it. That would be a fueling facility. So this is it's removing any barriers to allowing a charging vehicle station at a parking lot at the mall, like where there is one now. The city can't delay it. We can't slow it down. We can't tell them no.
I was just concerned that we just don't want someone to place something in front of their home and call it a charging station, right? I mean,
Exactly. No,
is
that wouldn't be
possible.
allowed. It could go in their garage, and they could charge their own vehicle, but they cannot do a commercial business where they charge people's vehicles. No.
Oh, okay, thank you. And I have more questions. I don't know if you'll be responding to them, but I see that it'll be single-family home zones, commercial and industrial businesses. But are there going to be pockets of concentrated zones where it exists? And do you have a visual map of that? You probably said no, but you didn't provide the visual map because I'm assuming it's going to cover all 72 square miles, if that were desirable to the city beautification or aesthetic.
I think it's more if a business would like to offer a charging station for its customers, we can't stop them from doing that. We're supposed to allow that.
Correct. Regardless of how many parking spaces they lose or anything. It's
And then the next one, I don't think you'll respond. Probably staff will. But after this ordinance is approved, will it come back on the consent calendar, which means there's a second reading, or will it come back on consent and then it'll come back a third time for a reading?
No, all the ordinances that are being introduced tonight will come back for adoption at, I don't know if it's the next meeting or two from now. Okay, Carol's shaking her head.
Next
So
meeting,
next
yes.
meeting we'll
First
have
meeting in October.
the second reading and the adoption of those ordinances on the consent calendar as usual.
Well, I don't know the usuals. That's what I was asking. All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries with Mr. Negretti absent.
Item B5, a public hearing to hear arguments for and against the notice of intent to adopt a notice of exemption for the Mojave Drive East Trail Traffic Signal Project. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council approve and adopt the notice of exemption for the Mojave Drive East Trail Traffic Signal Project.
At this time, I open the public hearing, and I do not have any cards from anyone that wants to speak. Therefore, I close the public hearing. And comments or questions by council members?
I'll move approval of the recommendation.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion
Abstain.
carries. Mr. Cox abstaining? Motion carries with Mr. Cox abstaining.
Now I move on to consent calendar. Consent calendar items C1 through C20 can be approved with one motion unless there is an item that needs to be pulled for discussion.
Yes, I'd like to pull several of them. So C2 is going to be only for comment. So I'm going to make a motion to have consent calendar items C1, C3, and C4, C6, C8 through 10, C12, and C13, C15 through C17.
Just a second, you're going a little too fast. I'm not able to keep up with you. So you were at C8 and C10 and then?
C8 through C10, C12 and C13, C15 through 17, and C19 and 20.
The entire consent calendar, just about.
And may I ask
Moving to approve those
why
or pull
those
those?
have
Oh,
been
she's
removed?
pulling it.
Yeah, I have
the
questions
entire
on those items before I cast my vote. It's a one single motion, and I have questions on these items.
Are these questions that if we approve the consent calendar and continue 1, 3, 4, 6, 8 through 10, 12, 13, 15 through 17, 19, and 20 to the next meeting, that you could meet with staff and get your questions answered?
I'm casting a vote today unless we're going to postpone the entire vote formal process for next week. I don't see why we...
Shall we take a
Wouldn't vote
motion
for it
and see if
today.
we can carry this over to the next meeting? We have too many items yet.
Yeah, I think she ought to meet with staff and get her questions answered. I don't see a reason to do it now.
I have a motion.
So my question is for the attorney. I have the right to pull consent calendar items and have them answered during the dais. I know that for sure. I don't see why we're having an issue with consent. We have a lot of consent items that with one vote, they're all swiped in, and I don't see why we couldn't look at them. I mean, that hasn't been a problem in the past 9 months, but it is today.
Well, it has been a problem in the past, but we allowed it. But considering that you're pulling the entire consent calendar, and we want to continue on.
Well, I'm still going to go ahead and give my response and questions to the items that I've pulled. So the other ones that aren't pulled, you can do one motion. That's not an issue.
Next meeting?
I would
We-
make a motion to approve.
Per the rules, you typically would allow council members to pull those items, but if there's no discussion on them, it's an interesting situation where potentially, if you're not going to take any action on them, she could ask for questions tonight, and then you can either, staff could either answer them, or we could put them on a future agenda.
Well, if a council member has questions, they ought to receive the answers. But if we have a very thick agenda, it seems like that if these questions should have been answered by the staff or can be answered by the staff, I don't know why the whole council should be held hostage while we go through, while one person has a substantial number of questions and the rest have already read it and do not. It's fair that we simply approve those that haven't been pulled, which I think are limited to item 2, 5, 14, and 18, and have the rest of them continued to the next agenda and give any person the opportunity to sit down with the staff and get all their questions answered.
That's a
What's
motion
wrong
I
with
will
that?
second.
There is one item, there was a timing issue on C12 that has to do with rejection of claims.
This is why we said we wanted the manager to be able to reject those so that they don't get held up. But here's we're not going to discuss claims and potential litigation in public. It's a matter of rejection. We've always rejected them. If there's a question on that should have been answered already.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox, you've been the city manager for 29 years, and I laud the way you speak. However, I've been a council member for 9 months, so I have the opportunity to ask questions on behalf of the taxpayer. And I think we do it at the dais at a public hearing for a certain reason. So if that is a problem, I mean, we do have elections, and I guess people vote us in and vote us out for
You
the
can-
questions
you
that we
can
do
huff and
ask.
puff, but the fact is, I agreed with you to get your questions answered. It's just that I don't think you have the right to hold everybody hostage because you have questions. And I'm also responsive to the public, and I don't have any questions on these items from my constituency. And we have about the same constituency if you count the votes. So I don't know where these come from. Don't care. You did get them answered. Staff is available to do that.
I second the motion, if that's a motion, Jim.
The motion.
Second it.
Well, I still have the opportunity to speak through with what I said, so you can motion anything you want. I'm still going to go ahead and go forth. I think the attorney already said if you have discussion, we're going to be able to pull these items for discussion, and that's what I'm doing. If you want to change the municipal code to say otherwise, that's why we will be doing that in the future, so that certain
Mayor, I call
council
for the
members don't
question.
pull.
Agree. We will continue.
I do need clarification on the issue of the rejection of the claims, because we're going to miss the 45-day rejection deadline if that gets continued.
Handle that by a separate vote.
You can't handle that by separate vote. You can move those items that are not being pulled at this point and make a motion to approve those items.
What items are not being pulled?
And pull that one for a separate vote tonight. Jim, is that okay with you?
Yes, we can do that.
That's fine.
You could certainly handle that item
Problem with
first,
that? I just,
That was C12.
12, and then ask if council members have questions on C12.
Any questions on C12?
No. You know what, and let me look back. Sometimes it's really frustrating to be here and find myself to be defending myself on what I'm pulling. So I'm looking back really patiently, and all those that I actually said I would pull, those were the ones for approval. So even though it seemed like I was pulling the entire calendar, because it's really frustrating to be here, sometimes to try to have a discussion that's orderly. These are actually for approval. The ones that I want to pull, C2, C5, C7, C11, 14, and 18 for questions. The ones that I had named prior were all for approval.
So should there be a substitute motion then for approval of all of the items listed C1, C3, C4, C6, C8 through 10, C12, C13, C15 through 17, C19, and 20?
Yes, for one approval.
That'd be a substitute motion to approve all of those items.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Ms. Gomez, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
What's left?
So now we have items that Councilmember Gomez would like pulled, which are the remaining items. Item C,
C2, C5, C7, C11, C14, and 18.
We'll meet with staff and we'll continue those to the next meeting.
you don't have any policy on that in your
That
municipal
was
code
in
at this
Jim's
point?
motion, wasn't it?
Yes.
That's
It was.
C2, C5, C7, C11, C14, and what?
C18?
18.
18. I will go back.
So the motion,
Motion that those items will be continued to the next council meeting, giving the opportunity for any council member to sit down with staff and get their questions answered on these particular items. These aren't hidden. They'll come back on the next agenda.
Just as a general observation for those of you who are here, consent items are on the consent calendar because they're non-controversial. They don't require any discussion in the opinion of staff. Any council member who wants to pull one because they do require discussion can do it. It's meant to be an expedient way to move administrative things through.
is that a second, to Mr. Kennedy, or
Second.
did you second that motion by Mr.
Will,
Cox?
I did. Yep, I will. Yes.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with Councilmember Gomez opposed.
We move on to item D3.
Madam Mayor, if I could interrupt for just a second. I'm not 100% sure what was and wasn't approved, what's going on to a future agenda, but did the city clerk's item that she was concerned about, C12, was that approved?
Yes, it was. That
Okay,
was
thank you. I apologize.
Now, with all the confusion going on, I did have 3 cards for D4. Should I,
D1.
D1.
D4?
We're on D1.
Oh, we're on D1.
On D1.
Oh, that's right. We're not even there yet. Okay. Sorry, our meetings are not followed properly here. Okay. We're on D3. Well, no, we're on. Okay. Now we move on to written communications. Item D1, request to approve the award of contract to IEC Corporation as a qualified electrical engineer for Victorville Municipal Utility Services, BEMUS, project number CC17-099. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council approve the Consultant Professional Services Provider Agreement with IEC Corporation for technical consulting services to be provided for VMUS electrical facilities in an amount not to exceed $100,000.
Any discussion or a motion?
Yes, as always. So if you want to put that item to the next calendar, I would agree. If not, my question is as follows. Do you want me to proceed, or would you like to calendarize it for the next agenda?
I just need a motion.
So my question is, does the City of Victorville not have a qualified consultant or a city employee that is qualified for the services needed for this item?
Madam Mayor, members of the council, the services that are being provided under this contract are intended to actually replace the services of an existing consulting firm that provides electrical design work for the VMUS electric system. We do not have an electrical engineer on staff to provide these services, so because they're specialized, that's the reason why we've relied on external help. And we believe it's the best way to proceed as we continue to not only plan check the system needs and development plans coming in, but also to assist us with some master planning for the future.
Thank you. I have no further questions on that item.
Other questions?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Item D2, contract award for Legacy Courtyard statue-based installation project number BM 18-022. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council award a contract to Cajon Concrete Construction, Inc. in the amount of $38,500 for the installation of the Legacy Courtyard statue base to include the installation of pavers.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Before I proceed with my formal vote, I have a question. Is there a date of completion or an approximation for this project to be done?
I believe we're trying to get it done within the next 30 days.
Thank you. I have no further questions, and my
Item
response is I
D3?
agree. Yes.
I will continue with item D3.
Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Sale of property by and between the successor agency to the Victorville Redevelopment Agency and Civic Rogers LLC pursuant to the approved Long-Range Property Management Plan, LRPMP. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the Board of Directors adopt resolution number RSA 17-005, approving the sale of property more particularly described as APN number 3106-26119 to Civic Rogers LLC, and authorize the Director of Economic Development to execute any and all transactional documents to effectuate this sale.
Just a question, Keith. The proceeds from this just pass on to the state of California, am I right?
No, actually not to the state of California. They actually go back to the successor agency to pay enforceable obligations, and if there are no enforceable obligations, then those would be funds that get distributed to the local taxing agencies.
But it doesn't come to the city itself.
If there's a pass-through to the local taxing agencies, the city is a beneficiary. I think it's around the order of about 16 cents on the dollar. So if all the enforceable obligations are satisfied, then that effectively would be the residual benefit to the city.
Thank you.
I have a question, Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Did I read someplace, Keith or staff, that this is being purchased by an individual to erect a sign?
That is the intent, yes. This has been this is a residual piece of property that we believe was acquired originally by the RDA, dating back to when the Goodwill Interchange was built. There had been plans and efforts while the agency owned the property and as it entered into an owner participation agreement with the subject developer to actually use this site to help create a master plan or support a master plan of signage for that larger center that is where Home Depot is, the In-N-Out. There was an envisioned and site-planned hotel, some other big box, and because the order of magnitude of development was so great, I believe it was about 55 acres, they qualified under the sign ordinance for the ability to erect a large sign. Actual sign studies were done to determine the best location to get the best visibility to the freeway, and this was that site. So, yeah, the intent, once complete with this transaction, it's believed that the developer would then erect a
As a part
sign.
of the agreement with the developer, did the city of Victorville enter into an agreement to allow a billboard to be constructed at this location to benefit his property?
No, it's not via agreement. My understanding is it's through the planning process, including the reliance upon the existing sign ordinance that allows for that to occur.
I'm
I
going to urge the
believe-
council to vote no. We don't need another billboard in this city.
The question, Sophie, do you want to come up and help?
As she comes up, this is not so much a billboard as a large advertisement for those properties versus what I consider a billboard where off-site properties may advertise on it. So.
Thank you, Doug. Good evening. Yes, for clarification, billboards are not allowed in the city any longer, so it would actually be a freestanding, approximately 60-foot sign that is specifically for advertising those businesses that are in the 4 phases of the Desert Plazas, the businesses that Keith mentioned, and those future businesses to be built. They basically are on 3 corners of Roy Rogers and Civic. No agreement. We were in the process of dealing with this transaction, this sale of this property when the RDA was dissolved. So part of the RDA dissolution process allowed us to basically petition to the state in our long-range property management plan, and that's where we asked for their permission basically to allow us to complete the sale to this owner. They submitted an offer, we conducted an appraisal, and so it's basically a market, an arm's length transaction. They are working with city planning staff and following the city ordinance based on their acreage to put in the allowable sign. There's nothing special associated with this sale. No special development agreement or any special signage obligations.
Do we have any other signs locally that will be identical to the one that they're intending to put up?
Under the same ordinance, I believe the signs at the Mall of Victor Valley, similar.
Oh, okay.
Except that includes a digital display, and I haven't seen any plans for them to include a digital display such as the mall has. But the height and type is similar to how the mall advertises all of the mall stores. That's how this would be for the Desert Plaza Center.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, the item of focus in this particular agenda item is dealing with the actual sale of former RDA property. We're obligated to go through the dissolution and attempt to sell properties as expeditiously as possible while at the same time trying to generate the highest value for the property. We believe this transaction does that given the very unique nature of the property. It's a very small, tiny, fairly unusable piece of property tucked in a northwest corner of I-15 and Hook Boulevard. The issue of signage That certainly we disclose that that's an intended use, and that's either gone through or going through the planning process. So subject to those considerations, this item is particularly dealing with the disposition of the property.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion carries with Mr. Cox opposed.
Item D4, rental licensing requirements. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council hear staff presentation, determine whether any changes are warranted, and direct staff as desired.
I do have some cards. Oh, go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Yes, this item was brought up at the August 1st City Council hearing by Mark Ward during the public comment period, and Mr. Cox obtained consensus from the council to have this item put on the agenda. The rental license requirement in the city of Victorville began around 2005. The original requirements were $25 and that the owner of the property attend a crime-free training. There were several issues arose. The largest one to me was that the fact that there was no property inspection tied to the license. So we could be giving someone a license for $25 and attending the class, but yet they could have the worst looking property in the city or even the high desert. I mentioned a couple other issues on the first page. Moving to the second page of the staff report, I know that was the revision that was added to you tonight just to help you out. In 2014, if you remember, we sat down and did the strategic planning session. That strategic plan contained 3-year goals, which included safer community, higher value residential, prettier, cleaner community with pride of ownership, and improved roads. In 2014 also, if you remember the single family discussion, we tried to increase the lot size from 7,200 to 10,000. That didn't work. But part of that discussion brought out a report from John Husing. He was hired by the BIA. He submitted a report in that process that said that the lot size isn't just the only issue that can help you, but it outlined a number of issues facing the city, and the rental properties were one of them. Rental properties, as were pointed out in that report, they usually result in higher probability of calls for police, fire, and code enforcement services, and they deteriorate at a faster rate than single-family owner-occupied dwellings do. So in this report, there were also suggested methods of combating the issues regarding rental properties. The ordinance that we put in place in 2014 that we're talking about tonight is one of those methods of dealing with rental properties and their negative impacts. The changes that we made to the ordinance were to make the crime-free requirement now just an acknowledgement on the application. We based the fees on a study of what the actual staff costs are to actually process the application. Every initial license receives an inspection for basic property maintenance and landscape, and a second inspection if it fails. Every separate rental parcel or property requires its own license. I know that was an issue discussed on the first as well. And then to clarify that, multiple unit complexes, 2 units, 4 units, 20 units, 300 units, a multifamily complex, still one license. And then every license is renewed yearly with an option for a reduced renewal fee. If you remember at the time, the comments and the discussion was that this is merely an ordinance that good landlords having to pay for the bad landlords. Well, we took that into consideration. We provided financial reductions on the initial license and for the renewal for the good landlords, those with no code enforcement activity. So we also added some points in the staff report about why we would require a separate business license for each property. That was one of the main issues. The 2 main ones, I think, are if they sell the property, it's easy to close the license. If they have enforcement issues which reach the point where we want to revoke the business license, it's easy to do when each property has a separate business license, whereas if they had one business license for 40 different properties. At the bottom of page 2, we provided a table of the top 10 rental property owners by number. Mr. Ward is at the top of the list. He has 40 rentals. However, there's 2 people behind him in the 30s and 2 people behind that in the 20s. So there are quite a few people who own multiple rentals in the city of Victorville. The program that we've implemented has started almost 2 years ago, but you're only hearing from Mark Ward now because we left Old Town for the last phase. We did that because we knew it had the most issues, and we wanted to try and get the program ironed out before we got there. When Mark complained that 40 was a lot of business licenses to pay for at one time, we agreed with him, and we allowed him to make payments. I think he did it in 2, but we would have been okay if he made more than 2 payments. On the improvements that he's going to need to make, we're offering up to a year to make those changes. We understand it's a lot. We're trying to get compliance. That's what code enforcement does, is look for compliance. Also attached in the staff report, behind the attachment, is some pictures. We included several houses in Old Town that have before and after pictures to show you some of the changes that are occurring with the program. Now, in Mr. Ward's letters, I know he's spoken very negatively of myself and Kevin Collins in his letters to you. In his last letter, it was, every day is a new set of attacks. And in tonight's letter, my favorite is, he's hoping that the City Council will preclude city staff's arrogance, incompetence, pettiness, or admitted nefarious goals to be realized. I hope that the Council can see that this isn't a case of attacks on Mark Ward. This is about the ordinances and requirements that the city has in place and trying to enforce them for the betterment of the city. Our goal is to get Victorville to be the best city it can be. Now, it might hurt for some business owners, for some homeowners and developers, but in the end, it's what we need to do to move the city in the right direction. We would hope that you don't want to change the ordinances. We're almost 2 years in. We're about 80% done with the rental aspect of it, and we're seeing good progress, but we are here tonight to hear your suggestions, questions, and concerns.
Chris, I got a question. I'm looking at these before and after pictures, and I'm having a hard time seeing what was accomplished, what the difference is between the before and the after.
The main difference is that it's just bare dirt. In the before, it's just bare dirt, no landscaping, no rock. The requirement, and I agree, a couple of them look a little sparse, but the ordinance that's in place requires landscaping, which will cover 50% of the landscaped area at full growth.
Well,
so
what exactly is wrong with dirt in the desert?
Well, it's not very aesthetically pleasing. If that's the way you want to go, then I mean, the ordinance is in place
people to put down rock.
Rock is one of the options. Ground cover, live plants for ground cover, or shrubs. They don't have to put down rock in areas where there are plants or under plants. But if they don't do plants, then rock is an option. Yes.
You think dirt in the desert is unacceptable landscaping?
We did 2 years ago when the code was adopted. So that's what the staff is enforcing, is the code that was adopted 2 years ago. Or I don't know when the landscaping code was adopted. But
yes, before developers used to come in and install grass, plants, and because of the drought situation, it's changed now to a more drought-tolerant landscape. We can't just have dirt with a few plants. It just wasn't. I mean, we've been enforcing that for since the drought requirements.
I've seen some desert landscaping that is presented and shown as a model. Dirt with plants.
I think what you're thinking of is decomposed granite. What? Typically, decomposed granite, which is a type of granite.
Dirt.
Just dirt.
I've seen things that we consider acceptable desert landscaping with dirt and plants. I mean, this is...
And that's the purpose of this discussion, is if we need to make changes to our ordinances, that's what we'd like to hear. Unfortunately, staff is charged with enforcing what's on the books now, and we can't deviate from that. So if the council wants us to take a look at that.
There's something different if you're standing on a sidewalk looking, but in the pictures, I don't see much difference between the before and after. I wasn't offended by the aesthetics of the before, and I'm not particularly thrilled by the aesthetics after. So I don't know. Maybe we need to think about that.
Well, the gravel is so expensive. I had someone that was trying to comply with the code, and they came in not at my private office. And they showed me the estimate that they got from the landscaper, and it was up to $7,000.
Wow.
I mean, they couldn't
Just
afford-
gravel or
they
the
could
the
not
whole
afford
deal?
that. We finally, it was Wally. But anyhow, somehow he made some kind of an arrangement with the city, and they redesigned what he had to do, and he was able to comply with that. But gravel is quite expensive, and it's impossible for a lot of families to be able to afford that. So
I know we're
dirt,
all bothered by cars and refrigerators and trash in the front yard. That we ought to get
Well,
cleaned
this
up.
requirement, that's actually, right now, we're only on the rental aspect of it. So these aren't families that are having to pay. These are the business owners that own the rental properties right now. We will be doing the homeowner side of it next, where, yes, we will be putting the same requirements on every homeowner in the city as well.
This is a very interesting discussion because if this ordinance was adopted 2 years ago, all of you guys were here adopting that ordinance. Anyways, I have concerns about this rental licensing modification if it does occur. If council does consider one business fee for landlords and a separate inspection fee for the cost that it takes the city to inspect, then it must also be standardized for our commercial and our industrial counterparts. The same would be with multi-housing family units in the city. For example, if Arco, the gas station, has one landlord and 5 Arco stations in Victorville, or for that matter, several liquor stores, I would expect that one license be issued and the cost to be inspected would be prorated for having the city inspect the properties, and that would have to be inclusive of new businesses if they fit this multiple purpose businesses in our city. If that is not the case, then I believe we need to be very careful as to creating a slippery slope.
Most ARCOs would have different ownership, but yes, each one requires a different business license.
Question. How much is the annual business license?
For a brand new rental, it would be about $175. A new rental owner in the system is $175.
And how much every year after that?
It depends on if they're a good landlord and don't have any code enforcement activity, then it would be $43. And if they're not, it would require an officer inspection as well and would go up to around $85.
So if an individual, once they receive the inspections and there's a code enforcement officer that drives by, looks at it, has a file, no problems, it's only $43 per unit?
The next year they would file for a renewal and would show us a picture, and if everything's in shape, it would be $43, yes. And they would do a checklist. There's a checklist that goes with it that they verify that everything's in compliance, and that renewal would be $43.
Yeah, it's a self-certification by any landlords who, in the second year and beyond, haven't had code enforcement issues and self-certify that they still meet the intent of the code.
That was brought up by property managers during the process, that they have a checklist, they go through all the property, they keep care of their properties, so that's why that, also based on comments by the council too, I believe.
Please don't. Sorry. On a page that's submitted where Mark Ward is number 1 and then there's a list of 10 individuals,
Yes.
those aren't $43.
No, it's hard to tell. It's hard to look at the amounts that they paid because some of these owners have rentals that were in our system. So if they had a rental that was in our system, it cost them less to get a new license, go into our new program. And if we didn't have record of them having a rental, then it went up to $173. So some of these had 20 in our system and 12 out of our system, so they cost more. So it's very hard to look at the amounts they paid and determine why.
Let me speak to a personal experience. We have a rental. We have 3 or 4 rentals in Victorville, I think. We have a rental that's a few blocks away from our house. It's over on Burning Tree. We put in all that rock and as ground cover. We got cited. Now it's a rental, so it must have been a citation written by a rental enforcement officer. I don't think it was code enforcement. Citation said, you've got weeds around your electrical box and you've got to go clean them up. I got in my car. I said, I'm a city council member. I can't be getting citations. I drove down to the house. And I looked from one end of that property to the other, and I couldn't find any weeds. I couldn't find any weeds. So I called my wife on the phone. I said, where are these weeds? And she said, they're around the water meter box. And I was standing right there. I looked down and I said, oh, I must have pulled 3, maybe 4 times, put them in the bucket, and went home. I was cited for that. That was a I guess I'm on the list now of being a lousy landlord because I got a citation.
Mr. Kennedy.
No, somewhere this thing is off track.
Mr.
I'm not
Kennedy.
looking for I'm glad I got cited because now everybody knows we get no special treatment up here. That's really important for you to know. But, geez, I am also a citizen. I'm a landlord. I'm a good landlord. That makes sense.
It probably wasn't a citation. It should have been a notice of violation.
Okay, whatever.
There was no fine attached to it. It was just letting you know that there's weeds there. It is a difficult task for the code enforcement officers who are the rental license.
I didn't see that by driving by. There are some pretty shabby residences along that section of Burning Tree that would catch anybody's eye, and they wouldn't have to work hard to find them. Somebody had to stop and take some time to find those weeds. I'm telling you.
We're doing a sweep in that area, checking each and every house in the area, and providing them with a notice for any potential
I
violations.
understand why this is not getting a lot of public support from landlords.
So a landlord with 40 units is making revenue if the homes are being rented. The landlord could be passing the cost to the renter. That could be conceivable. If any of the council members here have rentals and are landlords of properties in Victorville, shouldn't there be a recusal before a formal vote comes into play, Andre?
If this ordinance is going citywide, they are probably being treated the same as the public generally.
So then should this discussion be had when there's
That's
council
not
members
if
that
it's
have-
public generally, and this is a citywide ordinance, so it affects everybody exactly the same way. So it's probably exempt from the requirement for recusal.
Probably.
Probably we take an FPP decision, but my analysis right now is that this affects everybody citywide. There's no different areas in the city.
So then I would have to ask the FPPC of something
Correct.
of this nature. It wouldn't be up to the city local government, right?
If the city council members have a concern with it, then they could recuse themselves from voting if they have actual residential rental properties,
'Cause
subject to this ordinance.
Wouldn't property landlord owners that cast a vote be benefiting them? I mean, I see how you're saying it's for the entire city,
Right.
but
Right, there's a general exception in the FPPC rules that says when it affects everybody the same way and they're not being affected any differently than anybody else, it's probably okay for them to participate
all right,
in the
thank you.
decision.
One comment, and then I'm through. There is a need to have inspection of properties. The oddity is that we have a rental unit that has 2 weeds and 2 property owners on each side that look horrible, 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 with weeds and rock and dead trees and 6 cars in the yard. Nothing is occurring to those because a homeowner lives there.
Mr. Cox, we had hoped to start the whole program together, the homeowners and the rentals, and we did. And it didn't last but close to 2 months before just the amount of code enforcement issues that were coming up between homeowners, between the homeless, between board ups in the city. We couldn't keep our whole code enforcement staff focused on a specific area of the city and ignore the rest of the city and the complaints that were occurring. I had hoped to do it, but we weren't able to. So yes, you're absolutely right. We've now enforced a code on rental property owners that hasn't been enforced on their neighbors. We hope to get started on the homeowner aspect of it within the next 2 months.
You know, I have to say, John Husing has accumulated a lot of data over a long number of years. He's been doing this a long, long time, and he has formed opinions about what that data means. But they are just his opinions, and I've heard a number of them that frankly, I just flat don't agree with. I believe there are many renters who choose to be renters, who choose not to own homes. By choice, they don't want to own a home. They don't want to be subject to the vagaries and fluctuations of mortgage loans. They like to be able, the freedom to pack up and move if they want to. Every renter isn't a bad citizen. And I think we all know that. Chris, you know that as well as I do.
Absolutely.
The problem we have in this city are homes that aren't adequately cared for. And I've never believed it made sense to identify rental units as the ones we had to focus our attention on. We need to focus our attention on all homes. I said this back when we first entered. Every home that's poorly cared for, we need to focus our attention on it. Trash and junk and crud all around the house, those are the houses. I don't care if they're owners or rentals.
Mr. Kinney,
I don't know where we go from there, but
I absolutely agree, and it is a tough issue. I guess the difference is good landlords versus bad. We don't want the bad landlords in the city. And I'm not, but in any way, shape, or form, saying that Mark Ward is a bad landlord. Nothing. But the idea of a program like this is to make it tougher for bad landlords to make money and thrive on the city of Victorville's rental properties when they're not caring for them. I absolutely agree. I don't care if Mark Ward owns 150 rentals if they all look like they're supposed to look. That's the purpose of the program. It's not against Mark Ward. It's against any of those, the people on the rental list. If they're not keeping up with their property and maintaining it the way it should be maintained.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, just for information's sake, I attended a meeting. Councilman Negretti asked myself and our code enforcement official to meet with Mr. Ward. We met yesterday, and what I learned in that meeting is that at least some of his properties are different. They're out of the ordinary. Some of the comments that I made during that meeting was that when this code was adopted 2 years ago, it was intended, or the vision that I think the council had in their mind is a typical tract home. Mr. Ward and some others, especially in the Old Town area, those homes are not typical. They are atypical, very much so, and they've been here for potentially going on 100 years, and have never had a driveway, have potentially never had landscaping. So there is an sort of a greater burden on those properties where the landscaping may cost as much, or the compliance may cost as much as the value of the residents now. So I don't want to say everything that happened in that meeting, because I'd rather leave it to Councilman Negretti. I know that he has some comments and some potential suggestions that could move us forward rather than looking backward at this issue.
Given the concerns raised by Councilmember Gomez, I'd prefer we not take action on it tonight till I can figure out who owns what in terms of property, because I don't have your information, and I can seek a determination from the FPPC. We'd give everybody the cover they're looking for. So if you wanted to defer this, I don't know who has rentals and who doesn't.
Good idea. Council members who own multiple rental units.
Madam Mayor, I was looking at this ordinance for some time, and when you step back for a moment, and let's try to untangle this situation that we're in. The spirit of this ordinance, conceptually, I think we can all agree on. There's some improvements that we could make, but clearly this is not a one-size-fits-all solution. We've seen that play out, and rather than gnash our teeth and get angry and bring up the past, I prefer to clear the air, start over again. We have an ordinance. I think it can be improved, but what's really happening here, this happens a lot with the city staff and the city council. The city council is here to serve the residents. If there is a problem, we need to look at it, because the ordinances that we pass were supposed to be done in a certain way, but when you execute those ordinances or that policy, sometimes you run into just the day-to-day struggles. Again, there is no one-size-fit-all solution. Conceptually, this all came out of a strategic planning session, which I'm not a big fan of. There's a lot of vague comments being made, and it's hard to action some of those things. Let me give you an example. We'd all like to see increased property values here in the city of Victorville. That is not a city function. We'd like to see that. But if you try to execute that, good luck. The number one cause for increased property values is employment growth. And we're struggling because we have a large commuter base, and where are their jobs at down the hill? So that's number one. Number two, median household income. Our median household income is $45,000 per household. That means in a traditional home mortgage situation, you could afford 3 times your household income, which would be about $150,000. That's not a lot. This is an affordable housing market. And there's a lot of improvements that we've made. And I think we have a lot of ways to go. But as I first heard about this ordinance, it sounded great. But again, executing it, I think, takes some common sense, takes being reasonable, and trying to understand the spirit of what you're doing. And the council is not just some group that cannot be bothered with these problems. Well, that's what the council said. That's what the council voted for. The execution of it was not on the table. The concept, the policy was on the table. So if it's not working, that's fine. This happens all the time. So we don't have to take any action today, but I would like to look at revising the ordinance in a way to fast-track decision-making so that we don't get into a limbo situation or increased fines in the thousands of dollars, because the language on those violations says you got 30 days. But putting an asphalt parking spot in on a huge city block or 2 of them, that's going to be problematic. So we just need good communication between city staff, the residents, and city council, because I think we all do want the same thing. How we execute it, it's going to take a little bit more work. So there's not a one-size-fits-only solution. I think it's going to take a little bit more work, so I'm looking forward to hearing the public comments on the cards, but this issue is not done.
I had a question for Andre real quick, actually. One of the things that we discussed in our meeting yesterday that Councilmember Negretti brought up there was we had a focus group when we looked at the changes to city codes regarding new properties being developed. And his suggestion was that at least for these property owners who are maybe in the Old Town area or have multiple rentals, not council members, but have multiple rentals, that we start up a focus group so that all of these issues can kind of be hashed out, around a table, with maybe 2 council members as it was before, maybe 2 planning commissioners and city staff, and those that are most affected by the ordinance, so we can get something that we can all agree with, and we're not, having this back and forth from the dais down to the public. It invites those that are most affected, just like we invited the building industry in because they were most affected by those ordinances. So my question to Andre is that something that you believe would have to wait until you get an FPPC decision, or is that something that the council, if they agree with that concept, could move forward on?
I think the council could agree with it. I wouldn't have anybody participate on that panel or in that focus group that had rental properties at this time until we find something out from the FPPC.
And I'm a little bit concerned with the continued conversation being perceived as inappropriate to rules and regulations to the FPPC could be speaking on this item if indeed it calls for a recusal and a formal vote. So I move to bring this item to a future agenda for discussion.
That would be appropriate.
Seems to me that the one piece of information we'd like to know is what are the requirements that we are imposing on rental owners to cure perceived property defects? I don't remember ever in an ordinance that we approved, and I was here, saying that rock was going to have to be these are the details that I don't think we've we know enough about. We need to know more.
I think it'd be appropriate to move this to a future agenda till we get determination.
Can I call out the cards now?
You can take those public comments, but again, I don't know who's got rental properties and not, so I would actually prefer that we do the whole thing at a future agenda till we get some determination from the FPPC. Might influence decision-making.
So this will be continued until I,
So the motion doesn't need a second? It's already a
Appropriate.
consensus?
Be good to have a second to move this item to the next agenda.
Move item D4 be continued to the next city council meeting.
It's already being moved by Blanca Gomez, so
That's
we need a
second.
second.
Would that be a second? Motion by Ms. Gomez, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries with Councilmember Kennedy absent.
now we move on to item D5. Presentation of request to approve the piggyback purchase of a Crefco PN 44100 Super Shoot 250D crack seal machine. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council award Crafco, Inc. the piggyback purchase of a Crafco PN 44100 Super Shot 250D crack seal machine in the amount of $62,660.71 under the Houston Galveston Area Council interlocal contract for cooperative purchasing number 11-2956 as budgeted for in the fiscal year 2017-2018 capital improvement project budget.
I will so move, but I do have a question after I get a second.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Ms. Garcia.
Isn't there another agency other than the Houston Galveston Area Council that we can use for cooperative purchasing agreements? In California? Closer to California?
Yeah, we tend to look for the best price possible when we look at those things. Looking to see if Mr. Mendiola maybe wants to talk about that, or I see Mr. Matthews on his way already. You guys can.
Well, I don't need to know now. I just, you can provide it later. I don't want to hold this meeting up. It just seems like if we're going to reference a cooperative purchasing agreement, we could find one that's at least in California. But, leave it to staff. I know you're looking on behalf of the city for the best deal.
We can certainly look into that further and get you an answer, but you have to be a member of the organization to begin with. So we look for organizations that have equipment similar to what we want to purchase. So these are very unique, technical, specialized pieces of equipment that, not every agency or cooperative purchasing agency is going to have. So it just kind of depends on where we can find it and who has it that bid it out already.
Thank you.
Motion second. Call for the vote.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed?
Before that formal vote, I also have commentary and questions to be responded to. So please define for me the piggyback purchase definition, meaning does this include the so many years of holding onto a business relationship and how is it significantly saving the city money? And of my reading of this has public works staff confirming the quote for Crafco, not what Mayor Pro Tem Cox had mentioned. So if that, I can get clarification for that.
I think the answer has to do with the fact that we're relying on the JPA, the Houston Galveston area, just as a part of their procurement services. There's a number of joint powers purchasing authorities out there that regularly bid a whole variety of different items. It happens to be that I think this one and in previous ones involving public works equipment, it seems that Houston Galveston has been the one that's had the equipment most readily available and identifiable. But one thing to know is that these organizations bid out regularly, and we are actually piggybacking on their effort. So we're relying on their procurement process as a more expedient and efficient way than to have to do multiple purchasing efforts on our end using our limited city resources. So what happens in this particular case is we are a member. In this case, we've joined as a member, and I think we've done that dating back to 2012 to this organization, just so that we can have access to their bidding process. But the actual award goes to the vendor itself, and in this case, the vendor is Craftco, the manufacturer of the actual crack seal machine.
So, I mean, I'm going to reiterate what you kind of said in my own words. So it's HGAC or Grafco. So I was thinking about contractors and subcontractors, but you're saying that the city of Victorville is relying on GGAC, the procuring process, but we're relying on the vendor Craftco in order for all this to do. So where is Craftco? Is Craftco in California? I don't see anything of that. I know relying on HGAC could be different, and we can have the vendor somewhere else. So that may answer the question for Mayor Pro Tem Cox if we're still going out of California.
The question, I think, is asking as to whether or not Craftco is in California. I don't, but I'm looking at the attached material to see if there's a quick answer.
If not, it's okay. It wasn't my question. I was just trying to help.
In a Zoom. Looks like it's at Chandler, Arizona, according to their materials that's in the agenda item, if I can read it correctly.
Okay, so the second question is there only one major vendor, and that suffices for being the lowest bid for so many years? So I'm looking to see if we've put this out for a bidding process within the last 5, 10, 15 years, or what was the timeline for that if it was put out for bid?
Well, we're not buying this type of equipment every year, and in fact, this particular item is replacing, I believe, a 14-year-old piece of equipment that's actually broken right now, and will make up 2 units. My understanding is that actual joint purchasing authority will annually bid a variety of different equipments. I would suspect Craftco is one of a number of manufacturers of this type of equipment, and it so happens that they're the low bidder meeting the specification that we've identified that we use out in the field.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
There's a motion and a second, and I have yes votes recorded from council members Garcia, Cox, and Negretti. Are there any other votes in favor?
I agree.
Councilmember Gomez? Councilmember Kennedy? How do you vote on this item? Motion carries unanimously.
Before we begin the next item, I have a question on procedure. Once we take the vote, council members to have questions, I thought we were supposed to ask those questions or make the comments after the motion and second.
Mayor Pro Tem Cox?
I changed my vote if the answer is question, but after we voted, it's not going to change my mind. It seems like we got something out of order here.
Right, we should allow for all of the questions to be discussed prior to taking the actual vote. It would be appropriate to have the debate after the motion and the second.
Right, so if you followed along today, Mayor Garcia has decided to take the votes first, and because I know I have commentary, instead of skipping my own commentary, I formally say I'm going to first get my questions answers, and then I formally vote. So it's up to the mayor how she's running this particular meeting, so that's why it's changed.
Always ask if there are questions before a motion, right?
I do, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm not in for an argument. I'm not up to it. Item D6, presentation of request to approve the piggyback purchase of one EnviroSite CCTV sewer inspection box van. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council award Haker Equipment Company as distributor for EnviroSite the piggyback purchase of one EnviroSite CCTV sewer inspection box van in the amount of $293,384.84 under the National Joint Powers Alliance Contract Number 022014 EVS and as budgeted for in the fiscal year 2017-2018 capital improvement project budget.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Of course, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, of course. So for item D6, it's basically the same question that I had for D5, the relationship, when's the last time we put a request for quote? Is that the same response that as we had for D5?
I'd say it's a similar response, yes. It's not every year that we purchase this type of equipment. In fact, this particular equipment is intended to replace an 18-year-old unit. And effectively what we've done is sought out different purchasing authorities. In this case, the purchasing authority is different than the one in the previous item, but certainly given our specific needs for equipment, and we've relied upon their effort, which is, I understand, a recurring effort where they do it annually or at least regularly to vendors of these types of equipment, and we rely on their purchasing services to find the best price.
And the next one is, I understand that the local dealers do not specialize in the one EnviroSite CCTV sewer inspection box can. So why do we need to purchase a CCTV when we spent just this year a large sum to look at all of our sewer system that covers 72 square miles in the city of Victorville? Is there any correlation? Is that off?
There is, and it's a very good question. Currently, the work that we have being undertaken by ProPipe, and as you recall, we did approve a contract earlier this year, basically to survey 500 miles worth of sewer system throughout the entire city, and we have to do that in fairly short order. We do have, as I mentioned, a CCTV vehicle truck that's 18 years old, but we certainly don't have the equipment or the manpower to survey the entire system within a 2-year window that Lahontan has asked us to do. So currently we're undergoing a very fast-paced characterization. That's where the actual camera goes into the sewer line and does a 360 inspection of just about everything that gives us an overall condition assessment. This van is going to replace the unreliable van that we currently have, and as ProPipe is done, one of our recurring maintenance responsibilities going forward is to be able to meet certain thresholds of inspection using this truck and the equipment within it, so that we can continue to update and update our characterization of the system, identify problems, and fix them as we find them.
And there's 2 other items that are coming up. Are they going to have any correlation? It's $1 million. So I guess when those come up, this is what I'm going to refer back to. They seem like they're items that go together, particularly with sewer and cost of money.
Right
but
now
that
we're
was
on
my
item
that
D6.
was. I'm sorry. I'm
We're on
finishing my
item
question.
D6.
So I'll be, like I said, going back to this item to see if there's a correlation. I think there is, but if you can help me out. So I have no further questions for this. Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Now we have item D7, award construction contract to Elecnor Belco for Mojave East Trail traffic signal. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council award a construction contract in the amount of $445,220 to Elecnor Belco for the Mojave East Trail traffic signal. And just for the record, the staff report actually incorrectly notes in the recommendation that it's for Nisqually Road, First Avenue. That's just an error. It's Mojave East Trail traffic signal.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion?
Of course. In this agenda item alone, I recall reading about 2 traffic signals. How many traffic signals are usually installed in 1 year? And up until now, how many have we already installed? I know we've done a couple of studies. And so in this agenda alone, I see 2. So I'm trying to figure out how this pattern is working.
Madam Mayor, we'll have City Engineer Brian Gengler speak to that.
It varies from year to year how many traffic signals we install. It depends on our funding. This particular one happens to be partly funded by a federal grant. In the last few years, if I recall, just I think we've been averaging about 2 per year, but we have not typically done that. There have been some years where we haven't installed any traffic signals, so it does vary. And right now we maintain about 90 traffic signals.
Thank you so much. No further questions.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Abstain?
Motion carries with Mr. Cox abstaining.
D8, approval of general service provider agreements for distribution systems, water quality sampling for fiscal year 2017-2018. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the Water District Board of Directors approve general service provider agreements for Eurofins Eaton Analytical, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $60,000 and for Clinical Laboratories of San Bernardino, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $60,000 for distribution systems water quality sampling for fiscal year 2017-2018.
Questions?
Yes, I have a question. So who is the district here? Are we considered the district up here at council, or who is?
The city council serves as the board of directors for the Victorville Water District.
Okay, and the next question is, are we getting 2 bidders, or is it redundant as stated in the report? And what is the pro if we only have 1 bidder and we have the district confirm the analytical results of the water testing?
Thank you for the question. That's actually a good question. In this particular case, the water district likes to have two service providers accessible to it. So this is effectively awarding 2 separate contracts to the 2 low bidders. There were 3 bids actually received. And in this particular case, Eurofins and Clinical are the 2 selected candidates. And really the basis for the selection was the number of tests that we do, the variety of different tests, and the number or the frequency that we do on an annual basis. And we used that compared to the individual pricings to determine the low bidder. Staff intends to use as much as possible the lowest of the low bidders primarily. But we also like to have the flexibility to have a backup in case there's an issue, perhaps with a first set of sampling, to where perhaps an independent second opinion or second sampling or testing is done.
Okay, so the second question, so in other words, is the city recommending 1 bidder to get the cost of analyzing the water? And we'll save money when the district is the one that confirms it, but yet you have the second bidder that comes in case you need it? That's the clarification that I was seeking.
That's correct. We're awarding for 2 contracts to 2 different companies, and they would be not to exceed amount contracts.
Thank you. No further questions.
Motion?
Move approval?
Second.
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D9, adoption of Measure I, 5-year capital improvement plan. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council adopt Resolution Number 17-055, adopting the Measure I 5-year capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2017-2018 through 2021-2022, appropriate an additional $1 million from Fund 250 Measure I for the Square Mile Pavement Rehabilitation Project, and add the Square Mile Pavement Rehabilitation Project to the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget in the amount of $1 million.
Any questions?
Yes. So staff is asking to reappropriate Measure I funds for the Square Mile Pavement Rehab Project of $1 million. Does this item have to do with the next item that provides the same figure of $1 million?
It's actually separate.
Are
It's
different.
separate?
Yeah, it's separate, and this item actually is just because we inadvertently left this project off of the capital improvement plan. So it's not reappropriating it, it is actually just simply appropriating it. Staff noticed the error, and since this item was coming forward as a formality to submit it to SBCTA, they added this at this time so that we didn't have multiple items.
So why a resolution? Why can't we just have a consensus vote?
I believe it's required as a part of the procedural requirement of SBCTA that we do this and submit that to them.
And I was looking at the Measure I. It's titled Measure I Local Street Pass-Through Funds 5-Year Capital Improvement Plan. The figures are so minuscule that even with my glasses I can't read it. So would someone provide some kind of visual, whether you send it to my inbox so I can look at that? It's just not readable.
Are you talking about the handwritten
Yes,
number?
there is something there's a sheet right here that if you try to look at the figures, I mean, it's impossible nearly to read.
That's a handwritten $1 million, which is the same spoken $2 million appropriation.
I think she's talking about the spreadsheet that, because it is made to fit in the agenda book, it's pretty tiny. So yeah, we can get you a larger copy. It's probably normally printed on 11 by 17 or something like that.
I have no further questions.
Have a motion? Second?
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
I have one question for our city manager.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm disappointed that no one takes the time to go over all this with Ms. Gomez. I thought staff was there to assist her, and evidently nobody's helping her.
I'm so disappointed that for the third time you would bring the same question and I'd ask for your personal help, and you never gave me that help. So yes, I asked them and I asked staff here in front.
I am not the one here to assist you with any of this. That's not my duty. Question.
We can proceed. I think we're wasting time right now.
You don't give me orders, lady. No, I need an answer. Why don't we help Ms. Gomez beforehand?
We have an agenda briefing with Ms. Gomez every Monday before the council meeting. So sometimes we don't.
Gone over?
We did not get to this item in the agenda briefing. We were focused on earlier items and didn't get to this point during that briefing.
Thank you.
So your next question in the future will be the same one. I'll be asking the same questions.
The reason most of us are able to move through them is because we read the staff reports carefully, and most of the information we need to.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then I don't need city staff. You guys can answer all my questions.
Possible with this person. Item D10, La Mesa Nisqually Road Interchange, 1 million payment to San Bernardino County Transportation Authority. Madam Clerk, please read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council authorize staff to pay the San Bernardino County Transportation Authority $1 million for the city's share of construction cost of the I-15 La Mesa Road, Nisqually Road interchange from the Road Service Development Impact Fee Fund number 352.
Any questions? Second.
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries with Mr. Cox absent.
D11, Green Tree Boulevard Extension Project, Capital Project Needs Analysis. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council approve the capital project needs analysis for the Green Tree Boulevard Extension Project for fiscal years 2018, 2019 through 2022, 2023.
Madam Mayor, I have a question. Brian, could you help with this? I'm looking at the worksheet at the back of the staff report. That first column on the left, total project costs are $35 million. We've got something called presented funding and total measure I request. But over on the right-hand column, it looks like the total cost is $45 million. Obviously, I'm not sure how to read this. Can you? help me with that?
I can explain this. This is a standard form, and we had to use this form that SBCTA has. Actually, it's an online form. We had to insert the numbers, so I can walk you through these numbers very briefly if you'd like. So on the it's kind of doesn't read very well the way the form is set up, but basically, if you focus on the right-hand column where it says total, that's probably what has the best information. I'm going to go straight to the bottom.
Is that 35 million somebody's estimate way back when?
The 35 million, I believe, was an initial estimate on the project. Over time, construction costs went higher. The estimate has grown. It's increased. I think that was the initial estimate in the
I'm okay on the right hand.
in the Nexus study.
I got that. Yeah. Okay.
Where that
that's
came
really
from.
all I wanted.
Okay.
Any other questions? If not, can I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D12, ratification of sewer emergency repairs at various locations. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council ratify the emergency declaration for sewer repairs as described in the report and approve a construction contract with Hoffman Southwest Corporation, DBA Professional Pipe Services, ProPipe, for the emergency sewer repairs in the amount not to exceed $60,000.
Any questions?
Why do we have an emergency repair happening? And what happened recently in the city of Victorville with the sewers? What constitutes that emergency?
In this particular case, and this is directly relating to our ongoing sewer collection system surveying and characterization. So ProPipe is a contractor that we have working out in the field. They're studying the pipeline. They're determining if there's good sections, they're determining if they're bad sections, and they also identify if there's problem areas. And in this particular case, as they were going through their routine survey of the collection system, they did find a number, I believe it's 16 separate locations that, because we then became aware of the exact condition, and were not aware of it before these investigations occurred, it was identified that these were of concern enough to require immediate attention and to potentially avoid any spill of raw sewage, either contaminating the soil or surroundings. So we determined, because of that reason and directly relating to the ProPipe work, that we need to fix them as quickly as possible in such a time frame that didn't allow for time to come before the council, and that's why we are coming to the council to ratify that particular action.
So does this have to do with the EnviroSite CCTV that we just approved?
So not directly, but to give you an example of what you would find using that new van is, after this ProPipe work is done and say we identify the emergency issues and solve all of the current emergency issues, one of the things that van will be useful for is, as a part of our routine surveying of the collection system in forward years, it will help us identify much more quickly any problems in the collection system, to where then we could address those and fix those upon immediately finding out about them.
So I see our staff requested that the city manager declare an emergency and authorize the emergency repairs. Emergency as to the time when it was figured out. How long was this? A month ago, 3 days ago? It became an emergency when we actually created the narrow vision of, okay, this is where it's an emergency. We didn't notice this spillage was happening for so long. I'm trying to get the feel of what this emergency is.
It was not determined emergency until they were discovered. So we do not know how long those conditions existed, and that's one of the reasons, in fact, that's one of the primary reasons why we're out doing the surveying of the system right now.
I have no further questions.
Move approval.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Mr. Kennedy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D13, sewer and recycled water rate and capacity fee study, amendment number 2. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council approve Amendment Number 2 in the amount of $21,630 to the Consultant Professional Services Provider Agreement with NBS for the Sewer and Recycled Water Rate and Capacity Fee Study.
Yes. Do you know if NBS Consultants is the same consultant that the City of Hesperia is using for these sewer rate increases?
I do not. Brian, are you aware?
Okay. So there's going to be a fee increase per household. That means residential, commercial, industrial fees will be going up. Will it be perpetual? Where is the schedule of fees? And why didn't we propose a workshop before a fee increase to our residents?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, those are good questions, and in fact, that's some of what we will do. When we get to that point, this particular item is dealing with the actual professional study work that goes into establishing the costs associated with operating and maintaining the system. We have worked with NBS in the past, and they helped us with our water rate study structure. And we went through that exact process when there was an actual work product to share with the council so that they can deliberate on how they wanted to move forward with the proposed rate increases for water at that time. This particular study is not done. This is dealing with sewer. It's partially done, and we've actually already asked NBS to start. This particular item is amending the existing contract with them to add the components of capacity and operating costs for the wastewater treatment plant.
Do we know how many of the residents are on a sewer system? Is that 80% of the City of Victorville?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. That's an answer we can get you, but that is also a part of the analytics that do go into the rate structure.
And I have in front of me that proposed fee. Is that equivalent to the schedule of fees? Because I see something here, rate study tasks, but it's not fully developed. So are we waiting for the development for presentation to council?
That's correct.
And are we going to be having a workshop for stakeholders to come in and give input?
We would have a workshop, yes.
Or do we have to put it as an agenda item to have a consensus from the council?
I would propose a workshop for the council.
So you will probably do that during, I'm just making sure that we're going to have stakeholders in the community involved in this.
You will, and in fact, what can't happen is the adoption of the rate study without public deliberation. We'd actually do that in a public setting at a city council meeting, and it would be likely a rate study that contemplates rates needed over a 5-year period. But I would propose, just as we have done in the past, to start that or initiate that once the work product is in draft format in a workshop setting.
Okay, so
there are 3 city council presentations / workshops listed in the proposal at $3,600 total. So that is part of what they would do in the future.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch you. I was going to answer his question.
The proposal includes, as part of the proposed budget amendment, 3 city council presentations / workshops. That is something that they are aware of. That is one of the requirements to bring it back. So like with the water rates, we had 2 draft rate study workshops and then ultimately a final adoption workshop. So I would envision, as would Mr. Metzler, a similar schedule once the rate study is done and ready for the public and the council to view and comment on.
Okay, so then Keith, for clarification, then voting yes on this item, we are voting yes for the actual study that has been proposed, but it's not a yes for the increase that's proposed in this study. I mean, I need clarification for what I'm going to be doing next.
You're being asked to approve an amendment to the contract with NBS so that they can complete the work necessary to study the rates and charges for capacity and treatment for the wastewater treatment plant.
So in other words, they need to get paid before we can proceed.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Thank you. No further questions.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Mr. Cox. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D14, project proposal to California Transportation Commission for local streets and roads funding Village Drive, Mojave Drive to Air Expressway pavement rehabilitation. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council amend the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget to appropriate funding from the Local Streets and Roads Fund estimated at $712,000 for the Village Drive, Mojave Drive to Air Expressway pavement rehabilitation project, and authorize staff to submit this project to the California Transportation Commission to be eligible to receive the subject funding.
Questions?
Boy, congratulations to staff on this one. Every time we hear about a street being complained about, it's Mojave Drive. This one's being paid in large part by
Village Drive.
grants.
Village Drive.
Village Drive, I'm sorry.
Village Drive. Yeah.
Great.
Yes, I have also questions if nobody's continuing to ask any. So if approved today, will we guarantee submission by October 16 to be eligible for that funding?
That is correct, and this is a new procedural requirement. SB1 creates the new money for road maintenance. We do have to identify a specific project, so that's effectively why this item is on the agenda.
And so is this funding coming from several sources, or is it just from Cal Transportation Commission?
It would be multiple sources.
Are we going to, if the City Council approves the appropriation of fundings with the Local Streets and Roads Fund, is the city getting matching funds, or is it a full estimated amount of the grant that's going to be taken care of?
The funding sources are local funding sources right now. I'm not aware of a particular grant. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe they're all local, being LTF or Measure I related. Or in this case of the CTC, though it'd be distributed likely through the Measure I process, it'd still be local funds.
The Local Streets and Roads Fund doesn't require a match, but we already had funds in the current budget on this project, so this would just be adding those additional local and street road funds to the budget that was already approved.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
One else?
Move approval.
Second.
Well,
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Mr. Negretti. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D15, amendment number 1 for increase in award to the service provider agreement with Twining Inc. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council approve amendment number 1 for an increase in award to the service provider agreement with Twining Inc. in the not-to-exceed amount of $130,000 for a total contract not-to-exceed amount of $260,000 for quality assurance and materials testing on upcoming capital improvement program projects.
Comments? Questions? None? Can I have a motion?
Move approval.
Second?
Motion by Mr. Cox, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D16, 2017-2018 Mojave Water Agency Strategic Partnership Grant. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
The recommendation is that the City Council accept the grant funds in the amount of $5,000. Authorize project number 70658, ET Water Clock Installation for Landscape Maintenance Assessment District 1, and authorize the Director of Public Works and Water or his designee to process all documents required for the program administration.
Questions? Motion? Second?
Motion by Mr. Kennedy, second by Ms. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
D17, request to approve an award for security guard services. Madam Clerk, read the recommendation.
Recommendation is that the City Council and Board of Directors approve the security guard services agreement with Alltech Industries, Inc. for the unarmed security guard services, project number CC 17-069, in an amount not to exceed $28,683 for the remainder of fiscal year 2017-2018.
Thank you. Comments, questions?
Yes. Where did the idea of an unarmed security guard for the lobby and the cash register area birth from? This is the first time I'm hearing about this.
It's
And
on
I'm
the
assuming
agenda.
it says proposal. I'm sorry, did you read it for me, or would you like me to reinterpret how you read? Because I don't read like you read.
Continue, lady.
I am. Would you like to answer the question?
Continue.
Or point me out?
Continue.
Yes, I'm waiting for your response. Where is it here?
Continue.
I'm waiting for your response. Where? Point it out, please. Because you read it clearly, fully, more than I did.
There's a question. Please answer the question. so
She
staff
said
can
she would
answer.
answer the
No, don't
question.
be arguing with the
Okay, well, if
council
she's
members.
not, then she doesn't need to be interrupting me. We have a municipal code that says that there is no need to interrupt, so she's in violation, and there's nothing that's going to happen to her. Just like there is nothing if I can continue to argue with her, there's no repercussions for it. Same thing. So you should probably be addressing the mayor, telling her to keep order so that all of us fall into order. If I need to ask the question again, I shall.
So if I understand the question, the question was how long have we had security down in the customer service area? Was that the question? Do I understand it correctly?
Well, I'm under assumption because there's a proposal that maybe this is something fairly new. I don't know if there already is one.
No,
or
yeah,
if this
so the
is yearly.
security has been down there for a few years. It predates me arriving, but I do understand the security's been down there for a couple of years already. What this request is we have had issues with the vendor that we have had, and so we're going to the next vendor on the list via the RFP process that we went through in February to select the next qualified vendor. We're swapping out vendors to provide better service. We were having some issues.
All right, thank you for that clarification. I have no further questions.
Motion?
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Negretti, second by Ms. Gomez. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None opposed. Motion carries unanimously.
Now we move on to public comments. Did we need to read the statement again, or just let them know they have 3 minutes?
We need a new mayor. Wow.
The first card that I have is Daniel Polly. After Daniel will be Jim Greiner, or looks like Granger.
Thank you. Daniel Polly, 11418 Scotch Pine Way. I pretty well got a lot of this taken care of back here with the code enforcement to talk to him, but I'm in need of some help because you know what I've been through this last 4 or 5 months with this property. I want to move to Colorado. I want to get to where the VA treats a veteran with, like a human. And I'd also, the problem with that is that the landlady, after all these issues with her, is going to withhold my security deposit to fight things off. And what I'm trying to do is somebody's got to know her to help me, to at least let Caldwell Banker know that I want out of your city and that I need to withhold 1 month of rent and get my security deposit back so I can move on. If they don't, then it's $850 that I'm going to be homeless again as a veteran. So all my writing has been messed up. I've already talked to code enforcement, but I know you guys are saying it's a civil suit, but actually code enforcement had their hand in on a lot of this by not doing what they were supposed to for the violation. Now, they didn't show up to check on the violation. It wasn't done. They should have cited the landlord, but they didn't. And a lot of this issue has been from the city. And so that's what I've got to say. I pretty well have given him all the paperwork back there. So,
Is there someone else that we recommend to assist him with this?
I believe he's working with the Director of Development at this point.
Yeah, but he's asking for additional assistance.
Yeah, with Caldwell Banker,
Yeah,
because right now, what I've lost out on this place and what I am losing, 2010, I got my life together. I went through a big program with the Veterans Administration. I've had to move because of the prices of rental. And this landlady wants me out so she can raise the rent after being, you know, what she's done to me is unreal with everything that she's done, not even going by the laws. So I apparently there's no laws up here. You know, if the land, like he stated, with the landlords, there's good ones, there's bad ones. I mean, apparently the bad ones are getting away with everything. They're no different from a criminal that's shipped up here from Los Angeles. That's how I feel, and I'm not a criminal.
Madam Mayor, to answer your question, certainly I'll check with the director to see what more either he or I can do to assist. The speaker is correct. It is more of a civil issue, but obviously different folks in City Hall have different relationships. Certainly if there's something more we can do, we'll reach out to Coldwell Banker or to the renter.
Okay, because some of the stuff that was on
I'm
there
sorry, your time is up, but we will give you the assistance.
was not taken care of.
Thank you. Jim Reiner?
Yes, Jim Granger from Dead Celebs Clothing. First off, thanks for the new water pipes and the alleys we have in our area. I worked for redevelopment in the years 1989 to 2002 for the cities of Anaheim, Orange, Santa Ana, Brea, and Pomona. And while they didn't have the advantage of being on Route 66, they did manage to restore their old towns. And I worked as a general contractor, and I responded to RFPs from them, where they typically sold houses for $1. Sometimes they shared the profits. But I see Old Town in a prime situation. There's a wealth of mid-century architecture. There's Art Deco. There's Mission Revival. They're boarded up and in bad condition, and they continue to be sometimes occupied by homeless people. Every year we see a home or two, or a business or two, burned down. So it's not a situation that can remain stagnant. Yeah. Also, I see the school is redeemable architectural resource. It's mid-century also. A lot of these schools have been converted to single-family housing and condominiums across the country. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Kevin Williams? And after Kevin, I have Bob Harriman.
Hello, Kevin Williams, 12760 Boot Ridge Lane. There's quite a bit of excessive drag racing, I guess you would say, peeling out, revving up. And my issue is this is a school area, a park area. There's Eagle Ranch Elementary, there's the park next door, and then down Mesa Linda you have the junior high and the additional park there. And another thing I noticed along with this issue, I don't know if speed bumps would be a resolution. They have the little dots in the floors, I guess, but that's obviously not a deterrent for, whatever's going on. Another thing is there's Toronto Lane and Eagle Ranch, which is right across from Eagle Ranch Elementary. There's no way for individuals leaving that individual sub-housing section to actually get their children to the school. There's not a crosswalk, so they have to run across the street essentially, and there's not a sidewalk leading to the next intersection point where there's a crossing guard. So you have parents running across the street, you know what I mean, essentially to get their kids to school, on top of the issues with excessive speeding and racing and peeling out all throughout the day. And that's fine.
Thank you. Bob.
Good evening, everybody. I got a couple things. Last weekend, there was a bunch of signs reading no on Measure K, and they're all zip tied to city property. Light poles, I think those should be removed. Do you have to have a permit to put the political signage or ordinance signage? You can just put it wherever you want? I don't think so. So, number one. Number two, there was a lot of talk a little while about item D4, the rentals, and it's been put off a little bit. But this is why we need Measure K approved, because you have landlords with tenants, and that takes a lot of time for our police force. They're getting hundreds of calls every night, domestic violence, this and that, and we don't have the police officers to take care of this. So Measure K comes in firsthand. We need that. We'll have more officers, and they can take care of these situations in faster fashion. I want to clarify a little bit about the dirt Mr. Kennedy mentioned. It is the desert, but I believe in the planned unit developments. In mine in particular, I don't want my neighbors with dirt, okay? All right? It takes down the value of my property. Parking the cars in the dirt in the front yard. If you're in a planned unit development, there are rules. It's not an association, but it does come under certain rules. And one of them is you got to have your property look halfway decent. You can't let your yard die so you can park your cars in the front yard. Recently, I had the people behind me one night. I wake up to the sound of a Briggs & Stratton motor, and they're running their electricity off a generator. And when I confronted them the next day about it, because the police came to my house thinking it was me, they said they were renting the house from the people that were renting the house from the owner. So we do need some enforcement with business licenses, for rental properties. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard Meldias, and then after that, Jennifer Womack.
Do I hand this to you or do I hand it to you?
Thank you.
Let her hand those out real quick.
Is that Matthias?
Matthias, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Hey, Blanca, how you doing today? Okay. How you doing? Look tired. I know it's getting late. Okay. In the front of the building, the front picture is obviously my building in 1955 when it was the Victor Press. Okay. I've been working on my building for the last 5 months. I'm a little guy with very limited resources. I've been trying to revive my old town. I don't feel like I've been getting support from my city. I feel like me and code enforcement have not been seen eye to eye. I really, really am trying. I've been letting Mr. George Duran in anytime he comes by, which he comes by almost every other week, honestly. So I would love the support back, which I'm trying to give back to my city. I mean, I don't know why we're not seeing eye to eye. I would love to get info from the members, and please try to contact me, try to help me. I'm a little guy and I need help. You guys have a good night.
Thank you. Jennifer Womack.
My name's Jennifer. I'm the owner of My Baked Ben's Jamaican restaurant and bakery in Old Town.
Microphone down. Thank you.
Okay, in Old Town, Victorville. I don't know if I can name names, so I'll just say a council member entered my building with a tenant of one of my rentals. She accused me of being racist and told me that I was being unfair to my tenant because my building had sold. When I rented to the tenant, I let her know the building's for sale. It had been for sale for 2 years. Things don't sell that quick in Old Town. So with that being said, I had to evict the tenant. By the new owners asked me to evict them. I refunded all of their money to them for their deposit, their rents, because they'd only been in there for 3 months. She told me she's going to call code enforcement. So that was on the 23rd of August. August 30th, code enforcement shows up at my door and tells me he's going to close my business. He tells me I don't have a valid business license, which was untrue. Then he asked to inspect my grease trap. I'm not sure for what purpose, and cited me telling me that my grease trap needed to be serviced. So I called, I got my grease trap serviced. Well, I'll go back a minute. So the next day I went and spoke to Officer Duran. He was very nice. 2 hours later, we got everything squared away. But in that 2 hours, I had to close my business, which in turn I lose money, which is already hard. It's me and a cook, that's it. I can't afford to hire employees. So I opened back up. Mr. Duran took care of everything. So, okay. Then on September 12th, now mind you, I've never had a 911 call down to my building in Old Town Victorville. I've never been cited through ABC. All of a sudden, 3 years into having business, the San Bernardino County Sheriff shows up at my building to inspect my ABC license. I show him my license, ask him for his business card, and he tells me he doesn't have one. I don't know any San Bernardino County Sheriff that doesn't carry a business card. I told him he's more than welcome to inspect my building at that time. He tells me he doesn't have the proper forms to inspect my building, and he would have to come back that Friday, which was I believe the 19th, and he's yet to show up. So my question is I don't understand why me, once again, I'm a little guy just like everyone else, I'm being harassed, and this isn't the first time. Ever since I opened my building until now, I have constant code enforcement at my door. I have my business license, I have my certificate of occupancy, I have my health permit, everything I'm supposed to do. So I think you guys need to be aware that I don't know why they're targeting Old Town businesses when we're doing everything we're supposed to do. And just to let the real quick, please, the council member know.
I'm sorry, your time is up. But I do have one question. Did you say a council person?
A council person came into my building.
Lady?
Yes.
Well, it wasn't me.
It was not you.
Let's refer the matter to the city manager.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look into it. This is the first I've heard about the complaint, so I'd be happy to look into it.
Yeah, we will look into it.
Contact you.
And I know my time is up, but I want to let you know my tenant did move out, and she stripped my building of everything in it. Almost $25,000 worth of equipment now I have to pay to the new owners, and I don't have that. I don't know where I'm going to come up with that money. We filed a police report. We've taken all the measures we're supposed to take, all because I don't believe a council member needs to be involved in a tenant.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Those were all the cards that I had. So now we have our city manager's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Coming up on October 6th and 7th, right here at Victorville City Hall, is our Fall Festival, the premier social event in the High Desert. We're expecting over 30,000 people yet again. Added this year is a concert Friday night. The Friday night hours are from 7 until 10 p.m. On October 6th. Fat Cat Swinger will be performing starting about 8 o'clock. There's a little bit of a surprise before that I'm not supposed to talk about, so please ignore that. For Saturday, October 7th is our typical event for Fall Festival from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. There'll be 175 or so booths. This year we also have a book fair that will benefit our local library. So hope everyone comes out to that. I know you all do because it is a fantastic event. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Now we have discussion and possible action regarding items for upcoming city council agenda. Want to have anything? Jim?
I would request that the city council put on the next agenda item a report from our city manager as to what all of our options are as a city regarding the fire department. The discussion started in January last year, or this year, but some months ago. And over a period of months, there was a list of items that was put forth by the administration of the fire department in regard to the needs, and the city council decided to go to an election, a half-cent sales tax, and enumerated each of those actions that would give equipment, manpower, and all the needs for exactly as requested. The shock I had was that the very individuals who's requested that information is now opposing. That makes no sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. I don't want this city to be held hostage. I'm not sure if this is a mistake. Not sure exactly what's going on, but I think that the city manager needs to brief the council on all of the options that this council has. This is one of the most egregious things I've ever seen. And we discuss it.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Is there a consensus on that, to put that on the next agenda?
yeah.
We need to have
No need a formal motion, just have a consensus.
consensus, yes.
I sent even an opinion. It was an informational piece to the Daily Press. It printed on Sunday. I hope everybody read it. I think it was pretty factual.
I did.
Provided a lot of information about this ballot issue in November, and I said in that I was going to ask the council to agendize an item, and I think practically we're just talking about the 2 meetings in October, but an item for public discussion, not in public comment, because we don't get to respond to issues that get raised in public comment. They aren't agendized, so we don't get to engage in that discussion. But if we put this item on the agenda for the next 2 meetings in October, I'm hoping there is going to be some interest in the public to come in and talk about it, and we can actually engage in a discussion. We can't advocate. We're not on one side or the other, but it's really important to understand what the choice is, because it really is a choice. It's not just yes or no. It's a real choice, and I'm hoping that that discussion could happen at a council meeting. So I'd like to ask that we put that item on the agenda for the next 2 meetings.
Agree.
Agree.
So what's the difference between what you just said and what Cox said? Isn't it the same thing? I need clarification for that.
I thought it was the same thing.
That's what I'm thinking. It's the same thing.
That's okay. I don't
Well,
mind.
no, I
asked for
I
the
think
next
if they
agenda
link
as-
together.
They link together, but they're
But-
separate.
But there's more to the decision about Measure K than just what our fire options are. Though that's an important part of that decision. But our fire options come November are pretty limited.
I may be able to add a little color to that because I've spoken with each of these 2 council members about their item and requested that they bring it up at this time, as I do with any council members. What Mr. Kennedy is talking about is specifically regarding Measure K and that fire tax. For the public to come down, they can say yes, no, we can answer questions. Whereas Mr. Cox, in my discussion with him, was more about the provision of fire services as we go forward, whether K passes or not. And we did study that. We have study work that we can bring back to the council from the study that Citygate did for us. The council can once again see those options. And CAL FIRE was one option, but they have since said that they are not going to to provide a bid. But there are other options available, and that's information we already have. We can certainly put it on the next agenda.
Well, as long as it's on the agenda for a full discussion, there's a lot of misinformation. I'm constantly answering the phone. Today, 2 different phone calls. One is this is a ruse because we're going to give all the money to the fire department, or the police department, not the fire. Nothing could be further from the truth. Anyone who reads our ballot measure knows that. Why somebody would spread why they would just lie about it is beyond me. They must have some motions of their own, some motives. The other issue is that we get the money and we'll spend it however we want to. Just another one of the top 10 lies, because we specifically stated in the ballot measure exactly what the money is for. And we need more discussion. I think that the more discussion we have, the more light we shed on this. The calls I ask individuals, go back and ask the individual to show you proof. Then I found out who the individual is spreading that, and I'm even more disturbed. So we need a full discussion on this council. We need options, because I'm not going to be held hostage.
I'll tell you, if this thing gets debated on Facebook, the chance of getting a useful, factual discussion is virtually nil. Facebook is just no place to have this discussion.
So I'd also like to ask, put stuff on the agenda. I don't know if you guys need more time to add stuff, or if it's my turn, but I'm going to go ahead and take my turn now. One, options for districting and a proposed workshop for districting of the city of Victorville. I know the elementary has already redistricted. They were the first to go at it. The high school and the Victor Valley Community College are probably next. And so that's something that I would like to have a conversation with the general public, the general community, just like the tax on Measure K, where you want to have input of stakeholders and community members. I think the same thing would be viable for a discussion with districting and a proposed workshop. That would be one item. So I guess it's so moved, which means I'm requiring a formal vote. And if it dies on play, I know the city clerk would make that known. That was the first one.
Is there a second to the motion? No second, then the motion dies.
And the second thing is, I would like Victorville residents to have the option of the HERO program in our city. So I'd like to make that an agenda item. So that's my motion, to have a discussion of the HERO program for our residents to have that option.
I agree. That should be agendized. We have looked at that on and off for several years. And it's time the city council had a discussion on that matter.
I agree. CTA has been dealing with the HERO program, and there are pluses and minuses. There are a lot of issues there. So I think.
And then the third item, we spoke not too long ago when we had the community services budget. We said we would revisit and hopefully whether it's look at how community services is doing with their budget. That's something that we would look at. I know there was a consensus, but it hasn't been brought up to the plate. So I don't know if the appropriate time is the next agenda or if we should wait another month. But this is something that we had a consensus. So instead of forgetting about it, I think I'm bringing it up again.
I'd have to review the record. What I recall when budgets have been discussed is that we do that on an annual basis, so we probably wouldn't be discussing that until probably March or April of next year.
Yeah, so if you can look back, because I remember
I'll take a look and see, and maybe Carol, if you could review
Yes,
to
I
see
will.
what we missed, if we missed anything.
And then, well, that's a moved item, so I'm looking for a second. If not, Carol Lee can see what's going on.
There is no second, then the motion dies.
Okay. And then the fourth item, we also had a discussion. We had Friends of the Library, a particular individual, come here and tell us the needs of the library. We said, whether it was a consensus or unanimous, that we would look at the library budget, and if that's the same case where you look at it next year, then...
let me take a look and see what exactly the direction was.
Okay.
I know that we are planning to have a discussion about a future library facility, but I don't recall the library budget being a separate issue. So certainly we'll review that record.
All right. So just for clarification, I think the only item that I was able to get for the next item, for the next agenda, would be the HERO program. And then the other three died, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
If on those last two, if we have previous direction that we've failed to complete, we'll certainly either complete it or give an update as to that.
I agree. If there's an item that's hanging and we didn't follow up, staff
Yeah.
should do that
Oh,
automatically.
absolutely,
They
yeah.
shouldn't.
Okay, reports from council members.
Yeah, I do.
I do have, actually, it's not a report, but regarding commercial demand and schedule and check reconciliation register that's included on the agenda, I would like to know why all that is included when we don't need it. It's unnecessary. It's just a waste of paper.
The information does have to come forward. We did, over the last, I'll say, 4 or 5 months, add some additional detail at the request of Councilmember Gomez.
Well, the rest of us don't need it, so it can be provided for her, evidently.
Suppose they have to give it to all of us. Right, Doug?
We typically give it to all of you. If one asks for something like that, we would give it to all of you.
But is it necessary?
It's
Of this information?
really a council determination whether or not you believe it's necessary. Certainly if we receive direction to go back to the old report we used to use, we would do that. I haven't, it's really council's.
I believe it's necessary. It doesn't serve any purpose.
If we're following parliamentary procedure, whatever we're following, I think it's out of order. So Andre, I know you said you're not the keeper of the mayor, but this is out of the question. We're supposed to be giving reports. And she said she didn't have a report.
These are council member reports and comments, yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Doug, if I may, if the question is the number of paper that are being printed to provide that information, maybe we can keep it electronically and then available at request for those council members that don't want that big stack of paper. We can maybe work with the clerk's office and just exclude it, keep it electronically. And if you do want to research something, it would be there electronically. And if there is a council member that wants to keep it in paper form, we can accommodate that.
I don't need it. It just makes it just additional paper that we don't need to have. Thank you. Anyone else? Anything else?
Yes. Oh, I was letting someone else speak. So Daniel Poli, as a veteran, you're here, if you're still here. The city of Victorville will be honoring at an event close by a festivity. So if you get with Sue Jones or any one of the staff, they can forward that information to you. We'd like to recognize you as a veteran. Also, there was a public commenter on the unsafe speed near the school. So I'm going to ask staff on his behalf, will the city be doing a study in this area? What are the procedural measures to have a study from the city to minimize such nuisances? Anything like that? I would like to have a response.
Typically, when we have a complaint like that from a resident, to someone from the city engineer's office will reach out, learn a little bit more, and if a study is needed, then we would perform that.
And then for Measure K is about hiring 10 law enforcement officers and 15 firefighters. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then for Richard Matias, if we have code enforcement doing the Matias property in Old Town, is it procedural to have code enforcement come out to businesses' properties on a weekly basis, or is there some kind of procedure? Is he going to be reached out to because he feels like he's being harassed? And I know I've been harassed with code enforcement myself, so I know what you're going through.
I'll just say that there have been numerous violations noted at the property in question and next door. And so I think the visits are related more to that than simply a business attempting to open.
Okay, and then on September 13th through 15th, I had the pleasure of attending the annual conference expo by the California League of Cities in Sacramento. I was with hundreds of city officials on the north ground of the steps of the Capitol Friday morning, urging Jerry Brown to veto Senate Bill 649, which is the wireless telecommunications facilities. This bill, if it's not vetoed by the governor, would allow refrigerator-sized cells to allow encroachment in front of your homes and my home. In addition, I attended also in regards to, like I said, SB 649, so I became like a mini legislator on your behalf. I also attended various sessions, which included the Public Records Act, the Past, Present, and Future, Proposition 64, anything that had to do with Adult Use of Marijuana Act. I attended the Latino Caucus business meeting. I also attended Protecting Your Professional Reputation Online and the Women's Caucus business meeting, to name a few. That concludes my report.
Move for adjournment, Madam Mayor.
Meeting adjourned.